If you've been looking for a full-frame Canon DSLR, the most affordable option you've had in the past has been the Canon 5D Mark III. However, there's now a new, more affordable option, and this is Canon's EOS 6D. Let's take a look at the features and see how it performs. Instead of using the 5D Mark III's 22.3 megapixel sensor, the 6D has a brand new sensor. It offers a resolution of 20.2 megapixels, and the ISO range runs from 100 to 25,600. Just like the 5D Mark III, the ISO can be expanded from 50 through to 102,400. Another similarity to the 5D Mark III is the 6D's image processor. It features a Digic 5 image processor, and if you're thinking that this allows you to shoot at 6 frames per second, it doesn't. The 6D allows you to shoot at a maximum speed of 4.5 frames per second, which is slightly slower than the 60D, which shoots at 5.3 frames per second, and the 7D, which shoots at breathtaking 8 frames per second. Being a full-frame DSLR, the EOS 6D uses full-frame EF lenses at the front. If we just take off the lens here, we can see that it's got the EF lens mount, so you will require to spend a little bit more on EF lenses than EFS lenses, and if anyone is upgrading from EFS camera, they will actually need to change the lenses that they use. The EOS 6D has a 63-zone metering system. Now this is the same metering system that you'll find on the 5D. And if you just hit the metering button on the top of the camera, you can just select evaluative, partial metering, spot metering, or center weighted. One of the really interesting features on the 6D is its Wi-Fi capability. If you enable the Wi-Fi on the camera, you can then transmit your images directly from your DSLR straight to your smartphone. All you have to do to connect the 6D with your smartphone is just go and download the Canon EOS remote app. As well as being able to view the images that you've taken on your smartphone, you can also just go back to the main menu, and you can also control the 6D remotely just by clicking on remote shooting. Entering the remote shooting screen, you have the option to change the shutter speed, aperture and ISO, as well as many other functions. And just down at the bottom here, you can auto focus just by clicking this button, and you can then just go and fire the shutter by hitting this button. One thing you'll notice about the EOS 6D is that it's a lot smaller than the 5D Mark III. Although it feels very similar to the 5D Mark III in the hand, it's actually slightly slimmer, and this is due to it featuring an SD card slot at the side rather than a compact flash slot. So if we just take a look around the camera, we can actually see that it's not quite as long at the top. It's quite compact. It's a very small full-frame DSLR. In the hand, the EOS 6D feels really robust and very solid. It has magnesium front and back covers, and if we just spin around the 6D and take a look at the rear, we can see that it has quite a different layout to the 5D Mark III. It has a similar size screen, and it has a resolution of 1040 dot. And just to the right of this, we can see that it's got a very slightly smaller control dial. Unlike the 5D Mark III, there's no jog dial at the back of the camera to change your AF point position. So what you will need to do and get used to is to use the D-pad here just to change the position of your AF point. On the top of the 6D, you'll find a button within the mode dial that just allows you to change the shooting mode very easily. However, you can't change it accidentally because that button just locks it. And also on the top, you'll notice that there's no inbuilt flash. The really good news for photographers who may be looking at the 6D as a backup body is that it uses the same battery as found in the 5D Mark III, the 7D. So if I just remove it here, you'll see that it's the same LPE6 battery, so you can just interchange these very, very easily. So what about image quality? Well, as to be expected, the tried and tested 63-zone metering system produced identical exposure results to those that were previously produced on the 7D and 5D Mark III. Photographing a colour chart that's illuminated by daylight balanced lamps in a controlled studio environment is always a good test of how a camera renders colour and white balance. Both the vibrant and pastel colours on our checker chart were recorded accurately from 100 through to ISO 12800. The 6D sensor is capable of resolving finely spaced horizontal lines right down to 34 lines per millimetre, which is equal to Nikon's D600 at the same ISO sensitivity. Being a sensor that we've never tested before, we were keen to find out how well the new chip could control noise. If you shoot at the low end of the ISO scale between 100 and 3200, you'll be rewarded with clean, noise-free images. It's only really when you start to push beyond ISO 3200 that you can pick out very faint traces of noise creeping into images when they're viewed at 100%. With the small amount of noise reduction applied in post-processing, you'll be able to produce more than acceptable results at ISO 6400 and even 12800 with a push. Examining RAW and JPEG files, we noticed that there was a slight difference between the two. RAW files resolve much finer levels of detail than JPEGs. Inspecting an image of a lighthouse that featured very fine brick detail easily identified this. JPEGs do control chromatic aberrations very well along high contrast edges, however. Comparing the colour and contrast also revealed JPEGs were fractionally less saturated than RAWs, and we did notice that there was a bit more punch to our unprocessed RAW files in the darkest shadows compared to the processed JPEGs. So the EOS 6D is the most affordable Canon DSLR that's ever been produced. At £1,749, it represents good value for money. You can check out the full review of the 6D and the full verdict on whatdigitalcamera.com.